We do business with some of the largest automation OEMs on the planet. ABB, Fanuc, KUKA, Yaskawa, Universal, Staubli, the list goes on. If you're running into an issue with a particular robot that needs protection, reach out to us. We'll work with you to get the CADs and 2D design files to get a suit in your possession. Now that the robot is suited, let's take a moment to talk about different material options and customization plans for your suit. If this particular robot were, for example, working in a wet or a washdown environment, our recommendations are typically a few things. Rather than use standard zippers or Velcro, we can use fluid-resistant zippers. We can employ secondary flaps over those zippers to get a higher water repellency form factor on the suit itself. We can remove these access panels, reducing leak paths potentially into the suit. And that's about it for water resistance, but let's talk heat and other environmental concerns for just a moment. If this robot were, say, press tending, and it was handling a very hot part coming out of a press, transferring it to a conveyor belt prior to the next step, we would likely make this wrist section out of a completely different material called Norfab. Norfab is a para-aramid, meaning it will not burn, it will not support combustion, and it has a reflective metallic coating on the top to reflect radiated heat, again, away from the robot, away from the suit. If you're in a CNC tending application, let's talk about lubricants and coolants. Let's assume you have a ferrous metal part that you're turning, and you're using a coolant or a lubricant that has amines, A-M-I-N-E-S, in that coolant or lubricant. What an amine will do is destroy the rubber in O-rings and seals. It'll cause the rubber to swell, soften, and then eventually just fail. And whatever you're trying to protect the robot from is now making its way into the joints and seals in an unprotected robot. So Roboworld is more of a materials specialist organization. We have almost 13 different materials to choose from to specifically address the needs of your particular application. Let's talk about some of the applications that we routinely address. Something like blasting, whether that be with cut wire media or aluminum oxide grit. We also do water washdown, whether it be in industrial applications, deionized water for testing purposes, or in food sanitation and robot washdown. Outside of that, I think we contend with both extremes in low temperatures and high temperatures. And lastly, we really are trying to educate the CNC tending automation space, because as you heard before, if there are amines and you're working with ferrous metals, that robot definitely needs to be protected, lest you destroy the O-rings and seals on the robot. One last application to leave you with is welding. Think about spatter, think about sparks, think about post-weld grinding. A lot of those contaminants could come back to your robot. So consider a welding protective robo-suit. We frequently get questions about IP ratings and our suits. While we don't have specific IP ratings, we can address the needs typically that come with an IP55, IP67, whatever it may be. And those include the water-resistant zippers I talked about earlier, secondary flaps over those zippers, and removal of any superfluous access pads if you don't need them. That will greatly increase the water resistance of the robo-suit itself. Class, div, and group certifications are a bit tricky. Again, while Roboworld does not certify to class, div, or group requirements, we design, we engineer, and we manufacture to class, div requirements, meaning we may introduce pressurized air into the suit if you're in a class 1, div 2, class 1, div 1 environment. Talk to your Roboworld sales representative or sales engineer to learn more. You know, we get this question quite often. Well, how long should my robo suit last? And I like to think of it as being akin to a pair of sneakers. If you buy a pair of sneakers and you put it on a 7-year-old boy who loves basketball, they're probably not going to make it through the season. If, on the other hand, you give it to an elderly woman who needs them for her walker, they're probably going to last for years. The same applies to a robo-suit. If you're in an exceptionally dirty, gritty, oily environment, and you are working your robot at near 100% servo speeds, chances are you're going to need a new suit in a year or two. But we have a robo-suit in Iceland that's been installed for over 17 years, and it's still filing blood samples in Iceland. Another benefit of employing a Roboworld robo-suit is the fact that they're made in the USA. We have 2 manufacturing locations, both in Wisconsin,